4,000 years ago, in the heart of Mesopotamia, an empire vanished, and no one agrees on why. Its capital city, Akkad, was so completely erased that archaeologists still haven't found it. This was the world's first empire, built not by inheritance, but by one man's ambition. His name was Sargon, and his rise from obscurity to power would change history forever. Sargon didn't inherit a throne. He seized one, uniting dozens of rival Sumerian city-states under a single banner for the first time in human history. From this new capital, Akkad, he ruled an empire stretching from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea, the largest the world had ever seen. But absolute power always leaves a question behind it. What happens when the man who built an empire is gone, and everything he created is left in the hands of others? To understand what came next, you have to understand what Sargon left behind. A fragile web of cities, languages, and gods, held together by loyalty to one man alone. Before Sargon, Sumer was a patchwork of independent cities: Ur, Uruk, Lagash, Kish, each proud, each armed, each convinced it should rule the others. Sargon rose from humble beginnings. Legend says he began life as a cupbearer in the court of Kish, far from any throne. Historians still debate how he seized power. The surviving accounts are fragmented, later legends layered over sparse fact. What is certain is this: within a generation, he had conquered them all, but conquest alone does not build an empire. To hold together what he had won, Sargon needed something no ruler before him had ever attempted. And that decision would define everything that followed. Sargon's answer was radical. Appoint loyal governors, not conquered kings, to run each city. It was the world's first attempt at centralized imperial administration. He went further still, installing his own daughter, Enheduanna, as high priestess of the moon god Nana in Ur. She would become history's first author known by name. With politics and religion unified, Sargon turned to something even more powerful: trade. Akkad became the beating commercial heart of the ancient world. Merchants from distant lands, the Indus Valley, Oman, Anatolia, brought goods no Mesopotamian city had ever seen before. Akkad wasn't just an empire. It was becoming a civilization the world had never imagined. For decades, everything Sargon built seemed unstoppable. But even he could not rule forever. And what happened after his death would put his entire vision to the test. Sargon's throne passed to his son, Rimush. But an empire built on one man's personal authority does not simply transfer with a crown, and across the conquered cities, rebellion began to stir. City after city rose against Akkadian rule. Rimush crushed each revolt with brutal force. Inscriptions from his reign boast of tens of thousands killed. The empire held, but at a terrible cost. When Rimush died, his brother Manishtusu took the throne, and briefly, the empire found stability. Trade resumed. Temples were restored. It seemed the worst had passed, but peace in Akkad was never permanent. Manishtusu too was killed. Some later accounts claim by his own court, though the details remain historically uncertain. The throne passed once more, this time to a ruler who would push the empire further than anyone before him, Naram-Sin. Naram-Sin did something no Mesopotamian ruler had dared before. He declared himself a living god. Carved into stone, he stands taller than mortal men, wearing the horned crown of divinity itself. It was the empire's proudest moment, and some would later say, its first fatal warning sign. Under Naram-Sin, the empire reached its absolute peak. Armies marched into the mountains of Iran, into Anatolia, into Syria. No power in the known world could stand against Akkad. Prosperity followed conquest. New canals stretched across the land. Granaries overflowed. For the first time, one government controlled the entire breadbasket of Mesopotamia, and for a while, it seemed to work perfectly. But not everyone welcomed Akkadian rule. In the ancient city of Nippur, home to Mesopotamia's most sacred temple, priests watched Naram-Sin's growing power with unease. According to a much later literary tradition, tension was building between the throne and the gods themselves. Historians can't say for certain what happened next. The sources are fragmented and written centuries later. But one story, whether myth or memory, would come to define how the Akkadian Empire was remembered forever: the sack of Nippur's temple. According to the later text known as the Curse of Akkad, this act provoked the fury of the gods themselves, a warning that Akkad's glory had crossed a line it could never uncross. Whether literal history or powerful legend, what followed was undeniable. The empire's fortunes were about to change. Naram-Sin died as one of the most powerful rulers the world had ever known. But the empire he left behind was more fragile than it appeared, and his son, Shar-Kali-Shari, inherited a throne surrounded by enemies. From the eastern mountains came a new threat: nomadic raiders the Akkadians called the Gutians. Akkadian records describe them with contempt, as an uncivilized horde. But contempt did not stop them from striking again and again. Border garrisons fell one after another. Trade routes that had once carried copper and lapis lazuli now carried refugees. Inside Akkad's palace, the reports grew more desperate by the season. Then came a crisis no army could fight. Modern soil and pollen samples from ancient Tel Leilan, a city north of Akkad, reveal something remarkable. Around this time, the rains simply stopped. Climate scientists now call it the 4.2 kilo-year event, a sudden severe drought that struck the entire region. In Akkad's farmlands, the canals that once overflowed began, for the first time in living memory, to run dry. Drought does not destroy an empire in a single season. It destroys it slowly, harvest by failed harvest. As grain yields collapsed, the vast administrative machine Sargon had built began to strain under its own weight. With food scarce, the loyalty Sargon had bought with prosperity began to crack. Provincial governors, once obedient, started withholding grain and tribute for themselves. In the capital, Shar-Kali-Shari fought a war on every front at once. Gutian raiders from the mountains, Amorite tribes from the west, and now, rebellion from within his own empire. The empire that had once stretched from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean was now shrinking by the year. City by city, the provinces Sargon had united began to break away. And then, the worst news of all reached the palace. The Gutians were no longer raiding the borders. They were marching on Akkad itself. Akkad's walls held, for a time, but the empire beyond them was already unraveling. When Shar-Kali-Shari died, no clear heir remained, and the Sumerian king list records what followed with a single haunting phrase: who was king? Who was not king? For years, historians believed one simple story. Barbarian invaders from the mountains destroyed a great civilization. But modern archaeology has uncovered something the ancient scribes never recorded. And it changes everything. Geologists studying dust layers from the Gulf of Oman found a dramatic spike in wind-blown sediment dating to exactly this period. Hard physical evidence of a prolonged, region-wide drought, independent of any ancient text. This means the Gutian invasions and the empire's collapse may not have been separate events at all, but two symptoms of the same disaster. A starving, fractured empire, and hungry nomads pushed toward its borders by the same failed rains. The ancient poem, The Curse of Akkad, blamed the gods' anger for the empire's fall. Modern science suggests a different author for that curse, not divine wrath, but a shifting climate no Bronze Age king could have fought. Two explanations, separated by 4,000 years, both pointing to the same collapse. With this discovery, the final years of Akkad come into sharper focus. This was not a sudden fall, but a slow unraveling. An empire trying to govern a starving land with a system built for abundance. Population data drawn from later archaeological surveys shows something startling. Across the Kabur Plains north of Akkad, roughly 74% of settlements were abandoned during this period. Entire communities simply walked away from their homes. Those who remained faced impossible choices. Some fled south toward the rivers, where water still flowed. Others stayed and starved. The empire's once proud administrative letters, preserved on clay, turned desperate. Officials pleading for grain that no longer existed. Akkad itself endured longer than its provinces. The capital's granaries and river access bought it time others didn't have. But a city cannot survive as an empire's capital when there is no empire left to rule. And then, sometime in the decades that followed, Akkad itself was abandoned, so completely that its exact location was lost to history. To this day, despite over a century of searching, archaeologists have never definitively found the ruins of the city that once ruled the known world. For over a century, archaeologists have searched the plains of northern Iraq and Syria for Akkad's exact location. Dozens of sites have been proposed. None has been confirmed beyond doubt. Some researchers point to a mound near the Tigris River, others to sites further north along ancient trade routes. Satellite imagery has revealed buried canal patterns and settlement outlines invisible from the ground. Tantalizing clues, but never definitive proof. What survives instead are the empire's words. Thousands of clay tablets scattered across museums worldwide, recording trade, law, prayer, and eventually, desperation. Piece by piece, these fragments have let historians reconstruct what the ruins themselves still hide. Piecing together the climate data, the administrative letters, and the archaeological abandonment patterns, a consistent picture finally emerges. Not a single dramatic event, but a cascade. Drought, famine, migration, war, and finally, silence. The Akkadian Empire did not fall to a single enemy, a single battle, or a single curse. It fell because the very thing that made it revolutionary, total central control over an entire region, became the thing that could not bend when the climate itself turned against it. But an empire's true legacy is never only its downfall. Even in collapse, Akkad left behind ideas that would outlive it by thousands of years. The very concept of a unified, multi-ethnic empire governed from a single center, the model Sargon pioneered, would be copied by every great power that followed. Akkadian itself became the diplomatic language of the ancient Near East for over 1,000 years after the empire fell, used by kings in Babylon, in Assyria, even in Egypt, to write letters to one another. A civilization can vanish from the map and still shape the world in silence. And what of Enheduanna, the priestess poet installed by her father centuries before the collapse? Her hymns to the goddess Inanna survived on tablets copied for generations after her death, making her, by the evidence we have today, the earliest author in human history whose name we still know. The lesson historians draw from Akkad is not really about ancient gods or nomadic invaders. It's about fragility. How even the most powerful, most centralized system can unravel when the environment it depends on changes faster than its institutions can adapt. Researchers studying Akkad's collapse today often draw a direct line to the present. A warning written in dust and clay 4,000 years ago about what happens when a civilization outgrows the climate that sustains it. The evidence is finally connected. The mystery of Akkad's fall is, at last, understood. Stand today on the empty plains of northern Mesopotamia, and there is nothing to see. No walls, no towers, no throne. Only wind and dust, and the silence of a city the world once feared and admired in equal measure. Sargon set out to build something that had never existed before. And for a moment, against every odd, he succeeded completely. That success became the blueprint for every empire that followed him, all the way to our own age. And yet, no empire, no matter how vast, how organized, how divinely proclaimed, is immune to the ground beneath it changing. Akkad's greatest strength became, in the end, its single point of failure. 4,000 years later, buried tablets and sediment cores still speak for a civilization that left no ruins standing to speak for itself. Akkad's story is not just history. It's a warning, written in dust, still waiting to be heard. This has been a Dark Files investigation into the fall of the Akkadian Empire. If you want more forgotten stories from history, uncovered piece by piece, subscribe. The next file is already waiting to be opened.